1 minute ago, palace sources leaked the unthinkable. Queen Camilla attempted to force her way into a closed-door coronation planning meeting chaired by Prince William. Security turned her away at the threshold. What should have been a routine session became a flashpoint of exclusion and rage. The future queen consort, denied entry to her own coronation blueprint, now stands humiliated before the world. This isn't rumor. This is the moment the monarchy's iron curtain cracked. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The alert struck encrypted journalist channels and private royal WhatsApp groups at precisely 14:22 GMT. A single terse message from a verified palace source: Camilla attempted entry to William's coronation planning session. Denied at door. Tension extremely high. Within seconds, the tip multiplied, screenshots forwarded, voice notes circulating, the story igniting before any official line could form. Camilla had moved with purpose that afternoon. She strode through Buckingham Palace's long corridors, heels clicking against marble, two aides trailing a step behind with expressions caught between loyalty and dread. Her face carried the calm mask she had perfected over decades, yet those closest saw the telltale tightening around her mouth, the slight quickening of breath. She reached the heavy oak door of the blue drawing room, where the meeting had been underway for nearly an hour. Raised voices leaked faintly through the wood, William's measured tone, advisors responding in low agreement. Camilla lifted her hand to knock once, firmly. The door opened a crack. A senior protection officer stepped into the gap, expression professionally neutral. "I'm sorry, ma'am. His Royal Highness's instructions are explicit. This session is closed to additional attendees." The words landed softly yet carried the weight of iron. Camilla froze. For a heartbeat, the corridor seemed to hold its breath. Then she spoke, voice low but sharp, "This is my coronation as well." The officer did not flinch. "I understand, ma'am. The directive stands." The door closed again quietly, decisively, irrevocably. Inside the room, William remained seated, face impassive, though those beside him noticed the brief tightening of his jaw. Outside, Camilla stood motionless for several seconds longer than protocol allowed. Then she turned, chin high, and walked away with the same measured stride that had brought her there. But the aides who followed saw the tremor in her hands, the sudden pallor beneath carefully applied makeup. The future queen consort, reduced to begging entry at a door, had been refused in full view of staff who had once bowed to her every request. Charles received the news via an urgent call from his private secretary moments later. He listened in silence, phone pressed to his ear, the color draining from his face. When the call ended, he sat motionless, staring at nothing. The man who had fought for years to bring Camilla fully into the fold now faced the stark reality of his heir drawing a line he could not cross. The emotional blow struck deepest in that private silence. Love for his wife warring against pride in his son. Legacy clashing against loyalty. He had believed the coronation would heal old wounds. Instead, it had opened new ones. Flashbacks flooded the preceding weeks. Camilla had felt the sidelining grow sharper with every meeting she was not required to attend. Every document circulated without her input. Every symbolic decision finalized in rooms she never saw. Seating plans adjusted without consultation. Speech drafts shared only after approval. The crown she was to wear felt increasingly like an accessory rather than a partnership. Each exclusion fed the quiet panic. If she could not shape the day, would history remember her as queen in name only? The entitlement she had earned through decades of patience now collided hard against the dawning realization of diminished influence. She had believed proximity to Charles granted her a seat at every table. That belief shattered at a locked door. Rage simmered beneath the surface. But beneath rage lay fear that the coronation would mark not her triumph, but her permanent relegation. Whispers of what happened next behind those closed doors already circulated. Witness accounts. Possible audio captured on discreet devices. The full truth of the meeting she never entered waited to surface, promising revelations far more damaging than a single denied entry. But this wasn't a spontaneous outburst, it was the boiling point of months of quiet power erosion. And the real story of how Camilla reached that locked door began far earlier. For weeks before the attempted intrusion, Camilla watched critical coronation decisions made without her. Seating charts finalized. Speech drafts circulated. Symbolic elements locked in all behind doors she was no longer invited to open. Each exclusion felt like a personal verdict on her legitimacy. Desperation grew in silence until it could no longer be contained. When she finally acted, the palace was ready. And Zara Tyndall saw everything. The protocol had shifted quietly but deliberately. William, as heir and de facto steward of the event, narrowed the core planning group to working royals, only those with active public roles and direct lineal responsibility. Camilla, despite her title, fell outside that definition in the new structure. No formal announcement marked the change. It simply happened. Invitations to planning sessions stopped arriving in her diary. When she inquired politely, "I'd like to review the latest seating proposals," the replies came courteous yet final. "The Prince of Wales has the matter in hand, ma'am." Requests to join were met with vague assurances that her input would be sought separately or incorporated later. Later never came. The exclusions accumulated like small cuts that bleed slowly. A Tuesday afternoon session on procession order Camilla forgotten on the distribution list. A Thursday briefing on balcony choreography she was told the timing clashed with a prior engagement she had never scheduled. Friday evening draft review of Charles's address circulated to everyone except her private office. Each time the message was the same, the work proceeded smoothly without her presence. The message beneath was sharper. Her role had been redefined as ceremonial, ornamental, not essential. The emotional toll deepened with every missed meeting. Camilla had spent decades building toward this single day, the moment the crown would finally silence every doubter, every headline, every lingering question of belonging. Now that day was being shaped in rooms she could not enter. Fear took root and grew thorns. What if the queenship she wore was only symbolic, stripped of any real voice? What if history recorded her as a consort, who stood beside the king yet never shaped his reign? The dread was not loud at first. It was a quiet tightening in her chest during family dinners, a forced smile that lasted 1 second too long. Zara noticed the change before most. At those same dinners, Camilla's frustration simmered, visibly sharper replies to harmless questions, longer silences when coronation details arose, the way her fingers tightened around a wine glass when William spoke of decisions already taken. Zara watched from her usual place at the edge of the table, saying little, absorbing everything. She saw the contrast Camilla tried to hide. The woman who had once moved through palace life with quiet confidence now carried the tension of someone watching her own coronation become someone else's vision. Inside Camilla, the conflict raged without pause. Dignified silence had always been her shield. Endure, smile, outlast the criticism. Yet silence now felt like surrender. Every ignored request chipped at her resolve. The need to assert her place grew louder than caution. She told herself one appearance at a meeting would change nothing, and everything remind them she belonged at the center, not the margin. The thought circled endlessly: walk in, take her seat, force acknowledgement. Entitlement whispered that the crown she would wear granted her that right. Fear answered that forcing the issue might prove she had already lost it. The tension coiled tighter with each passing day. Camilla weighed the risks: public dignity against private power, restraint against action. She chose action, not because she wanted confrontation, but because waiting felt like vanishing. The palace, however, had anticipated the move. Security briefings had quietly included her name. Doors were prepared. Instructions were clear. Yet the real danger wasn't just exclusion, it was what Camilla might do when exclusion became intolerable. And the evidence of her next move would soon surface in the most explosive way. Fresh palace leaks detail the exact corridor exchange. Camilla demanding entry. Security replying, "His Royal Highness's instructions are clear, ma'am." Witnesses describe her face flushing with fury before she turned away. What began as a quiet power struggle exploded into public view. The future queen consort, reduced to pleading at a door, now faces the humiliation she feared most. And the full audio recording may still exist. The timeline reconstructs itself with merciless clarity from half a dozen staff accounts that surfaced within hours. At 14:18, Camilla rounded the final corner of the North Corridor, pace deliberate, expression composed but eyes fixed on the closed door ahead. At 14:19, she reached it. One sharp knock. The door opened perhaps 4 inches, enough for the protection officer's face to appear, enough for the words that followed to carry clearly down the hall. "Ma'am, I must ask you to step back. This meeting is restricted by direct order of the Prince of Wales." Camilla's response came instant and low, "This is my coronation." "Step aside." The officer did not move. "I cannot, ma'am. The directive is absolute." The door eased shut again at 14:19:47. Total exchange, less than 30 seconds. Long enough to change everything. Inside Camilla, the storm erupted in perfect silence at first. Anger surged hot, immediate, righteous. How dare they? How dare her stepson barricade her from decisions about the day she had waited decades to claim? Shame followed faster than she expected, bitter and choking. Because the refusal had not happened in shadows, it had happened in full view of aides who once hurried to open every door for her. Disbelief layered on top. This could not be real. She, the queen consort, treated like an intruder in her own palace. The three emotions collided so violently she felt physically unsteady for the first heartbeat after the door closed. Then fury won. Her face flushed deep crimson. Witnesses later described the color rising from her neck like spilled wine. The security officer stood frozen in his own conflict. Loyalty to William clear, written orders clashed against a lifetime of deference to the woman now standing inches away. He kept his voice level, professional, yet those closest heard the faint strain beneath it. A junior aide 2 paces behind Camilla exchanged a panicked glance with another staff member. One whispered, barely audible, "She's never been stopped before." The words hung in the corridor like smoke. Everyone understood the line had been crossed not by Camilla, but by the institution itself. A queen consort denied entry by her stepson's command. The hierarchy had shifted in real time, and they were all witnesses to the fracture. Side details leaked almost immediately, each one sharpening the outrage. One account mentioned Camilla's hand rising instinctively toward the doorknob before she caught herself. Another noted the way her aides instinctively stepped closer as though to shield her, then hesitated, uncertain whose authority held sway in that moment. A third claimed a faint click, possibly a discreet recording device activated by someone in the corridor. The possibility of hidden camera footage or voice notes taken on a staff phone sent fresh panic through senior ranks. If audio existed, every word, every tremor in her voice, every second of stunned silence after the refusal would soon surface. The palace had always controlled its narrative. Now that control hung by a thread. Staff throughout the building felt the shock ripple outward like concussion. Long-serving butlers who had bowed to Camilla for years exchanged stunned looks in service corridors. Younger aides who had never known a time before her arrival whispered in disbelief. A queen consort turned away like an uninvited guest. The contrast struck everyone. The woman entitled to curtsies and precedence, now forced to retreat down the same hallway she had entered with authority. Publicly, she kept her head high, stride even, mask intact. Privately, the moment she reached her apartments, the mask shattered. Doors closed. Voices rose. The queen consort who had been denied at the threshold now broke apart behind them. As whispers turned to headlines, the palace braced for fallout, but the most devastating blow waited in the private aftermath Camilla never expected. In her private apartments minutes after the rejection, Camilla's composure shattered. "They think they can erase me," she reportedly cried to Charles. Tears, fury, broken promises poured out. The woman who had waited decades for this moment now faced the possibility it would be stripped of meaning. Zara, hearing the aftermath through family channels, felt the fracture deepen. This wasn't protocol breach, it was existential crisis. The door had barely closed behind her when the mask fell away. Camilla stood in the center of the room, breathing hard. Hands clenched at her sides until the knuckles whitened. Then the first sob broke free, sharp, involuntary. The sound of something long held together finally giving way. Charles entered moments later, summoned by an aide's urgent whisper. He found her pacing, tears already streaking the makeup she had so carefully applied that morning. "They locked me out," she said, voice cracking on every word. "Your son locked me out of my own coronation." The accusation landed like a blade. Charles reached for her, but she pulled back, fury surging past grief. "He thinks he can decide who belongs. He thinks he can decide me." The meltdown unfolded in waves. Camilla hurled accusations at William: arrogance, cold calculation, deliberate humiliation. "He's punishing me for existing," she cried, "for daring to stand beside you." Each sentence carried years of buried hurt, the sidelong glances at every public event, the endless proving that she was more than scandal, the quiet certainty that no matter how long she endured, she would always be second best. Charles listened, face ashen, torn in two. He loved his wife with a depth that had cost him dearly. He loved his son with the fierce protectiveness of a father who had failed once and vowed never to fail again. "He's protecting the institution," Charles tried, voice thin. Camilla spun toward him. "The institution? Or his version of it? Where do I fit in that version, Charles?" The question hung unanswered, devastating in its simplicity. Charles sank into the nearest chair, hands trembling. The heartbreak was visible in every line of his face. The man who had fought to bring Camilla fully into the light now watched that light dim because of choices he could not undo. He had believed the coronation would heal old divisions, cement their shared future. Instead, it had become the arena where those divisions tore widest. Camilla dropped to her knees beside him, clutching his sleeve. "Promise me," she whispered. "Promise you won't let him erase me." Charles could not meet her eyes. The silence that followed was louder than any reply. Suspense thickened in the room. Camilla's phone lay on a side table. Messages had already been sent in the heat of the moment, angry texts to confidants. Voice notes dashed off between sobs. Any one of them could leak. Any recording of this private explosion could surface next. The palace walls had ears, and those ears were listening harder than ever. Zara learned of the meltdown through a discreet family channel, an aide who could no longer stay silent. The details arrived in fragments. Camilla's tears, Charles's broken silence, the raw accusation that William sought to diminish her very existence. Zara felt the rift widen inside her own chest. She had watched the exclusion grow for months, had seen Camilla's frustration simmer at dinners, had sensed the storm building. Now it had broken, and the damage reached further than anyone had anticipated. Horror settled over her, not triumph at being proven right, but dread at how deep the wound ran. This was no longer about protocol or planning. This was about survival. Camilla fighting to exist in the role she had earned through decades of endurance. William fighting to protect an institution he believed could not afford weakness. Camilla rose at last, wiping her face with shaking hands. The tears had stopped, replaced by something colder, more dangerous. "I won't be erased," she said quietly. Not by him, not by anyone. The vow carried no hysteria now, only iron determination. She would fight back no matter the cost, no matter who stood in the way. Charles watched her, helpless, knowing the battle lines had been drawn and that he could no longer stand on both sides. But private rage soon spilled into public view the moment the palace could no longer contain the damage. Within hours, palace sources flooded trusted journalists. Camilla tried to crash the meeting. Clips, quotes, timelines spread like wildfire. Social media ignited. William watched in grim silence as the future queen's humiliation became global news. The attempted intrusion wasn't just embarrassing, it threatened coronation optics and royal cohesion. The palace locked down, but the story was already out of control. The first credible report broke on a mid-tier British news site at 15:47, barely 90 minutes after the corridor incident. Within minutes, the major broadcasters picked it up. BBC interrupted programming with a breaking news banner. Sky News ran rolling coverage featuring anonymous palace insiders, confirming the basics: the knock, the refusal, the retreat. International wires followed swiftly. Reuters, all carrying the same stark headline variations: Queen Camilla denied entry to coronation planning session led by Prince William. Social platforms exploded in parallel. Clips of grainy security footage within the hour circulated alongside screenshots of the original tip message. Hashtags trended globally within 20 minutes. Hashtag Camilla locked out. Hashtag royal rejection. Hashtag coronation crisis. The viral spread pattern was textbook: first UK gossip accounts, then celebrity commentators, then mainstream influencers dissecting every leaked detail in real time. Inside the palace, communications team scrambled under siege. Phones rang off desks. Senior press officers drafted contradictory lines. One draft called it a misunderstanding over scheduling. Another leaned toward dignified non-comment, while junior staff fielded endless requests for on-record statements. Tempers flared in the press office corridor. A veteran loyalist snapped at a younger colleague pushing for transparency. "We protect her dignity, not feed the beast." The younger aide fired back, "Silence feeds it faster." The conflict cut straight through the room, old guard clinging to tradition and discretion, pragmatists arguing damage control demanded speed and candor. No consensus emerged. The palace issued only a bland holding statement. Discussions regarding the coronation continue as planned. It satisfied no one. Foreign media spun the story with ruthless efficiency. American outlets framed it as palace power struggle. French tabloids ran gleeful headlines about La Reine Refoul. German broadcasters questioned whether the monarchy could survive such visible internal fracture. Every angle amplified the same doubt: if the future queen consort could be barred from her own event planning. What did that say about stability at the top? The optics threatened to overshadow the coronation itself, turning a moment of national celebration into evidence of division and dysfunction. Camilla remained confined to her apartments, dignity evaporating with each new notification ping. She scrolled headlines in furious silence, face pale, hands shaking as she refreshed feeds showing her name trending alongside words like humiliated and snubbed. Isolated fury burned hotter than tears now. No public appearance possible without fueling the story further. No private channel untouched by the breach. The woman who had mastered composure under decades of scrutiny now faced the one humiliation she could not outlast: being seen as powerless in the very institution she was meant to join at its pinnacle. William watched the chaos unfold from his own secure office, expression unreadable. Advisors hovered, waiting for direction. He gave none beyond a single quiet order: let the truth stand. No retraction, no apology. His resolve was steel unbending, absolute. He would protect the institution above personal feelings, above family ties, above the woman who had tried to force her way into a process he believed must remain pure. The future king understood the cost of that choice: deeper rifts, lasting resentment, a coronation forever shadowed. Yet he accepted it without hesitation. The monarchy, in his view, could not afford weakness disguised as unity. As headlines multiplied and containment failed, one final reckoning loomed: the confrontation no one could avoid. In an emergency family meeting called by Charles, Camilla faced William across the table. "You locked me out of my own coronation," she accused. William's reply was ice: "I protected the process you tried to disrupt." Tears, shouts, long-buried grievances erupted. This wasn't discussion. This was reckoning. Zara watched the implosion, knowing her silence had preserved the truth, but at what cost to the family she still loved. The room felt charged before anyone spoke. Charles sat at the head, frail hands folded, eyes darting between his wife and his son. Camilla broke the silence first, voice trembling with barely contained rage. "You humiliated me in front of staff. You treated me like an intruder in my own home." William met her gaze without flinching. "You attempted to override a meeting you were not invited to. That is disruption." The word landed like a slap. Camilla leaned forward, tears already shining. "Disruption? Or desperation? You've sidelined me for months, every decision, every detail decided without me. Did you think I would simply disappear?" William's jaw tightened. "I thought you would respect the structure we agreed on. You didn't." The accusations flew faster. Camilla's voice rose, cracking on every second sentence. "You've never accepted me. Not fully. You still see the woman who came after Diana, the one who doesn't belong." William's reply cut deeper than any shout. "This isn't about the past. It's about the future. The coronation must be flawless. You tried to force your way in. That cannot happen." Tears spilled freely now. Camilla turned to Charles, pleading. Tell him I belong beside you." Charles opened his mouth, then closed it again. His heartbroken silence spoke louder than any defense. He looked older in that moment, trapped between the woman he loved and the son he would one day hand the crown to. The emotional peak arrived when Camilla confronted her own marginalization head-on. "I have waited decades for this day," she said, voice breaking. "Decades of headlines, of judgment, of proving I am more than scandal. And you reduced me to begging at a door." The room fell quiet except for her ragged breathing. William did not soften. "I reduced nothing. You chose to push past boundaries we set for a reason." The contrast was unbearable, Camilla's raw vulnerability against William's unyielding calm. Decades of tension layered the betrayal. Every sidelong glance Camilla had endured, every quiet exclusion, every time she had smiled through doubt now poured out in waves of hurt. She had believed love and endurance would finally grant her a seat at every table. Instead, she faced the table where she was no longer welcome. Zara sat at the far end, silent witness to the implosion. She had known the exclusion was real, had watched Camilla's frustration build, had chosen silence to preserve what remained of truth. Now that truth tore the family apart before her eyes. Loyalty pulled her toward Charles, toward Camilla's pain, toward the fragile unity she still cherished. Justice pulled harder toward the institution William defended, toward the principle that no one, not even a queen consort, could override process for personal need. The internal battle left her breathless. She wanted to speak, to bridge the chasm, yet every word felt like it would widen it further. Charles finally spoke, voice barely above a whisper. "Enough." The single word carried no authority, only exhaustion. He looked between them, wife and son, eyes glistening. No resolution followed, no apologies, only unresolved pain hanging thick in the air. Camilla wiped her face, fury hardening into something colder. William remained motionless, stance unchanged. The hierarchy had shifted in that room. The heir's authority no longer deferred to the consort's title. Permanent rifts loomed ahead, alliances redrawn, trust eroded, a royal family forever altered by one locked door and the confrontation it forced. With the summit ending in unresolved pain, attention turned to the one decision that could still salvage or shatter the coronation. Alone with Charles late at night, Camilla begged, "Don't let them erase me." Charles's voice broke, "I can't erase what you tried to force." For the first time, the king saw his wife not as partner in power, but as threat to the institution. The man who crowned her now faced the choice: shield her or safeguard the monarchy's future. The throne hung in the balance. The bedroom lamps burned low, casting long shadows across the walls. Camilla sat on the edge of the bed, still wearing the day's careful makeup now streaked with tears she no longer tried to hide. Charles stood near the window, back to her at first, shoulders rigid with the weight he could no longer carry alone. She reached for him. "Charles, please. Look at me." He turned slowly. His eyes were red-rimmed, exhausted. "I saw the security logs," he said quietly. "I heard what you said in the corridor. You demanded entry." Camilla's lip trembled. "I demanded my place. The place you promised me." The dialogue unfolded heavy with grief. Camilla's voice cracked on every plea. "I waited my whole life for this. Through the scandals, the silence, the judgment, I endured it all for us. For this day. Don't let William take it away." Charles's defense began strong but crumbled fast. "He's protecting the process. The coronation cannot be seen as something anyone can force their way into." Camilla shook her head fiercely. "The process? Or his version of the crown? He never wanted me there. Not really." Charles winced. The truth stung deeper than accusation. He had fought for her inclusion at every turn. Now he faced the moment that inclusion threatened the very institution he had sworn to preserve. Memories surfaced then, raw and shattering. Camilla spoke first, voice breaking. "Remember the nights we talked about this? About finally standing together, no more shadows? You said I would be queen in every way." Charles nodded, tears slipping free. "I meant it." She pressed on, desperate. "Then why does it feel like I'm still the outsider? Why does your son get to decide my worth?" Charles sank into the chair opposite her. hands covering his face. Because the crown isn't just ours anymore, it's his, and he believes it must be flawless. The admission tore something inside them both, the shared struggle that had bound them through decades now fractured by the reality of succession. Camilla knelt before him, clutching his knees. "Shield me," she whispered. "One last time. Tell William to stand down. Tell the world I belong." Charles looked down at her, the woman he had loved against every tide, and felt the power flip inside him. Personal loyalty pulled hard toward her tears. Her pain. The life they had built together. Yet the institution pulled harder. He saw, with devastating clarity, that protecting her now meant weakening the monarchy he would soon pass to his son. The throne demanded sacrifice. And tonight that sacrifice was hers. His voice broke when he finally answered. "I cannot." Camilla recoiled as though struck. "You won't." Charles shook his head, tears falling freely. "I cannot choose between you and the crown. Not anymore. The crown comes first. It has to." The finality landed like a stone in still water. Camilla rose slowly, dignity returning even through the devastation. She did not shout. She simply stared at him, betrayed, heartbroken, alone. Charles reached for her hand. She let him take it, but the warmth was gone. The decision hung between them, unspoken yet absolute. Charles would not intervene. He would not countermand William. The coronation would proceed under the heir's terms, flawless, controlled, uncompromised. Camilla understood in that moment that her queenship, once dreamed of as partnership, had become conditional. The king who had crowned her now chose the crown over the woman beside it. Grief swallowed them both. No embrace followed, only silence thick with what could never be unsaid. As dawn broke over the abbey, the final act unfolded not in whispers, but in a ceremony forever shadowed by what almost was. Camilla walked the aisle in full splendor, but every eye saw the ghost of the locked door. The crown sat on her head, yet whispers of the attempted intrusion never faded. Zara stood apart, unbowed. This wasn't victory for anyone. It was survival. The monarchy endured stronger in appearance, forever scarred in reality. A new era began, but vigilance replaced trust. And somewhere, unanswered questions still wait. The ceremony concluded with flawless pageantry, vows spoken, anthems soaring, bells ringing across the city. Yet the moment the abbey doors closed behind the procession, the air inside the family changed. Interactions cooled instantly. Charles offered Camilla his arm with mechanical courtesy. She accepted it without warmth. William exchanged brief nods with his father. No embrace, no lingering words. Cousins who once shared easy laughter now spoke in clipped sentences. Roles had been redefined in the silence that followed the locked door, no formal announcement needed. Camilla remained queen consort in title and regalia, but the invisible hierarchy had shifted. Influence once shared now flowed more narrowly toward the heir and his circle. The family moved through post-ceremony receptions like actors who had forgotten their lines, every smile measured, every glance guarded. Media coverage followed the same arc. The scandal that had dominated headlines for days pivoted almost overnight. Outlets that once dissected the intrusion with gleeful detail now ran measured pieces praising William's firmness as necessary stewardship. Editorials spoke of principled leadership and safeguarding tradition. Even critics who had mocked the locked door moment began to frame it as a painful but required assertion of order. Reluctant respect settled over the narrative. William, once cast as cold, now appeared as the steady hand the monarchy needed in uncertain times. The shift felt earned yet hollow. No one celebrated. The story had moved from crisis to quiet acknowledgement that the institution had survived its own fracture. Emotional scars ran deeper than any headline could capture. Trust fractured across generations. Grandchildren sensed the chill in rooms once filled with warmth, asking innocent questions that met awkward silences. Aunts and uncles exchanged careful texts rather than spontaneous calls. Elders retreated into private memories, mourning the unity they had believed unbreakable. The coronation had been meant to heal old divisions. Instead, it had etched new ones. Camilla carried her crown with dignity, yet the weight felt different now, heavier, lonelier. Charles moved through duties with visible weariness, the cost of choosing institution over wife etched in every line of his face. William bore the burden without complaint, knowing the firmness that preserved the crown had cost him pieces of his family he might never reclaim. Zara remained apart, unbowed yet deeply reflective. In quiet hours, she turned over the price of truth she had helped force into the open. She had chosen silence when it preserved integrity, then watched that integrity tear through the people she still loved. No triumph lit her thoughts, only the melancholy recognition that some truths heal the institution while wounding the souls inside it. She wondered if the monarchy could ever feel whole again, or if wholeness had always been illusion. The cost stayed with her, relationships cooled, trust eroded, the knowledge that speaking had saved something larger, yet lost something irreplaceable. Lingering mysteries refused to fade. Were there other attempts Camilla never confessed? Had quiet plans been laid in the weeks before the intrusion, alliances tested? Contingencies whispered? The questions hovered unanswered, faint shadows behind every official smile. A crown had been secured, the line of succession affirmed, the public face restored. Yet shadows lingered eternal. Vigilance became the new foundation, every door now checked twice, every meeting logged, every word weighed. The monarchy had endured its test, emerging tougher in appearance, but forever marked by what almost was. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.